On this episode of The Exhausted Majority, produced by We the People, Tim Ryan and I talk about the impeachment of Joe Biden, U.S. steel manufacturing, talk about a little bit about the Cleveland Browns, and politics and music. So, tune in. Let's go. I just want to dive in directly. It's all over the McCarthy impeachment of Biden. It's everywhere. I mean, and the hot takes are everywhere. You being in Congress for 20 years, what's your take on it all?
Yeah, I mean, you try to watch it and try to stay calm, not try to get too fired up about the news. But I'll tell you, like, something like this is just so far, like, beyond the pale. The fact that this kind of thing has become normalized with absolutely zero evidence. They're just going to trump it up, literally. Excuse the way I phrased that. But literally just making stuff up just to try to distract, to try to hurt President Biden before the election and let this inquiry go, for the rest of the year. And I think the shame of it all is that, again, this is the Exhausted Majority podcast. I mean, this is what exhausts people. It's like, you're not talking about jobs, you're not talking about wages, you're not talking about pensions or retirement security or the homeless problem or the fentanyl problem or almost 20 vets a day are still committing suicide. Like, if they would spend half a second like trying to focus on the real issues of the day. And again, I've always said that we don't know if the solution to some of these problems are the liberal progressive solution, or is there a conservative free market solution to this. What's the innovation that's out in the country, whether it's, some of the ways we heal our vets or how we teach our kids or how we, make investments into the economy and build up some of the forgotten cities. And you got a bunch of people that are all just focused on getting themselves on TV, raising money from, the most extreme groups of people in the entire country, and nobody's solving any problems. I mean, and the whole society is frustrated with the way the system is going. And in the whole, you go back to the founding of the country, it was about arguments about how to do things best. Centralized government, more states' rights. I mean, how do you structure it, and federalism and all this stuff. Like, those were the arguments that you would have. Big arguments about big things to try to come to the best solution, and that's just not happening today. I mean, you've got one political party that has been completely hijacked by the extremists, and so now they're going to run the impeachment thing, for the next, year, 14 months, and try to dirty up Joe Biden. They won't spend 1 second on it. I've not heard a new idea come out of the Republican Party in a long time. I mean, I remember Newt Gingrich, like, he was not a great guy, but I remember Newt Gingrich trying to talk about ideas.
Yeah.
That was 30 years ago. So, I mean, we got a long way to go, but this is pretty frustrating.
I mean, I would love to start having a conversation again about small government. Small government or big government. What's the role?
Yeah.
And I think that obviously there's a lot of people who want to have that discussion. It's just it doesn't sell ads, right? It's not part of it's not a viral clip. I think also just watching. I mean, we knew this was coming. McCarthy made how many deals with how many devils to get the gavel. And now all of his deals are kind of coming due, and it's just so clear he's just trying to cling to power. But then if you take a step back, that kind of lack of conviction, that kind of lack of fortitude to talk about the issues, to talk about things that I think the majority of Americans want to talk about. And he's number 3. He's number 3 in the presidential line. I mean, it's he's not a know nothing. He's a major political player. And I'm just looking at him just kowtow and just bow to these factions. And it hurt. I mean, it hurts. It hurts. Yeah. And especially hurts looking at him. And I wonder how he sleeps at night and whether or not he does any ice baths or anything like that. But it's
there's a guy that can use a nice ice bath. Kevin.
He must. He must, right? Like when I mean, you spend a lot of time with these people. I mean, I assume you also spend some time with now Speaker McCarthy. What is it that makes that choice be made? That choice to cling to power. That choice to just go to your extremists for your tiny little amount of votes that you need. And what do you think is going through his head potentially about, doesn't he want to do something more with his time?
He is in politics for all the wrong reasons. I mean, just to boil it down. And I have young people come up to me all the time and say, I'm thinking about politics and, should I get in, or, I want to get in. What do I do? And the first thing I tell them is, like, don't go in to, like, because you want affirmation or you want a title or you want power, or like, that's not why you go in. You go in to serve. And Kevin just reminds me of somebody who is, he doesn't remind me, he is the illustration of someone who has gotten into politics for all the wrong reasons, who wants the title, the gavel, the portrait up in the speaker's gallery, more than anything else. It doesn't matter. All this other stuff, they're details to his main goal. And, he has no conviction. And I will say this just to illustrate a point. And the politics and the issues are irrelevant. But I served in Congress with Nancy Pelosi, who was Speaker of the House, for a long time. And I remember when we were in the Iraq War, a lot of us, I was against it from the beginning, and we were already in, and we were trying to get out. And so when Democrats got into Congress in 2007, we won the House and the Senate. George W. Bush was still the president, and it was his war. There's no question about it, which is why we won the House and the Senate back. But I remember we were trying to get out of Iraq as quickly as humanly possible. But anybody who has paid attention, it's like really hard to or easy to get into a war, really hard to get out of a war. And we built cities there, our troops were there. I mean, it was a very complicated operation we had going. Our progressives, our left wing in the Democratic Party, would not compromise on, they want it out tomorrow. They want it out in 3 months. And we had a compromise of 6 months, 9 months on funding. How were we going to unwind it in an adult fashion? And I remember Nancy Pelosi going to the left wing and saying, this is the deal. I mean, this is the best we can do right now. Like, I want out. We all want out, but we can't get out now. It's just not how it works. And Bush is still president. And so, but this is the best we can do. And everybody got in line. And we did the best we could. It is the complete, and I watched her do that a lot over the years. It's the complete opposite with Kevin McCarthy. It's like the most extreme people in his caucus might as well have the gavel in their hand. It's just a completely different style of leadership. And I think when people look at politics, that's what they're frustrated about. That's what's exhausting, is that the extremes are running the show now, and it leaves everybody else kind of out of the game, exhausted, ready to check out. And that's why we're here, to talk about these things and to say, look, let's talk, let's have the discussion, let's have the disagreements, let's do it in a thoughtful way, and then go out for a beer, and we can still be friends. And McCarthy's the complete opposite of that. He lets those guys run wild so he can hold his title.
Yeah. Oof. And I mean, we have some pithy sayings where results aren't made in Washington D.C., but I think that we would both agree we would love to see more of a conversation, at least them trying to, so at least something happening. But it's obviously not, and it's clear that that no real issue conversations are going to happen until at least next year, next November, since after the presidential election. But however, we also know that some pretty extraordinary things are happening outside of Washington, D.C. One of the things that I want to talk about, that I want to ask you, that I want to learn about from your perspective, is the reemergence of U.S. Steel and how that's shaping communities and reshaping communities. And, but I don't know very much about it. I'm totally fine saying that. So I know that you have some stories, and I would love to hear from your perspective where we were, what happened, and where we're going.
Yeah, it's an interesting American story, really, where we had immigrants who came to the United States, and they began making steel in areas of the country that were had easy access to water. You needed fresh water to cool the steel. You needed it for the steel making process. You had to be close to iron ore and coal and for coke and all this other stuff. All the things you needed to put in to really to make the steel. And so you saw a lot of steel production get created where I grew up in Northeast Ohio, in Western Pennsylvania, along the Ohio River. You're close to West Virginia. Huge steel production in West Virginia. Pittsburgh was the home of U.S. Steel, the United Steelworkers. You go up into Michigan, you go up into Minnesota, like all of these areas, the Iron Range. You get into these areas, so the industrial Midwest. That's where the steel production came, and I grew up in the middle of the steel belt, which was Cleveland, then Youngstown, and Pittsburgh, and I grew up in the middle of that. My grandfather was a steel worker for 40 years, and we had steel mills were humming when he was working. The arsenal of democracy, when the boys went off to war and the women went into the mills. So he worked there for a long time, and we benefited our community from the steel industry. But an interesting thing happened is that we got to about the late 1970s, and the technology in the steel mills was like World War I technology. The steel industry did not change. I mean, they were riding high. The Marshall Plan. We were building the world. We were building skyscrapers here, shipping abroad. American steel was going everywhere. And so, the industry got fat and lazy and didn't change. And then in Youngstown, we have an event that was called Black Monday. And that's when the U.S. Steel pulled out. And it wasn't like today where a company says, in 90 days, we're closing down. Mm-hmm. They just shut the gates. I mean, they just picked up and left. And in a lot of communities around Akron, I represented Akron, Ohio, they lost the tire industry, and but Goodyear stayed. The headquarters stayed there. They lost thousands of good union-paying jobs. Bridgestone was still there. The corporate headquarters stayed. In Youngstown, everybody left, and so that was the story of the steel industry for a long time. That began the economic collapse of the steel belt moving to the Rust Belt. And what we're seeing now emerge with companies like Cleveland Cliffs and others, they're emerging with super cool technology on making steel, and the American steel is the cleanest steel in the entire world, and they continue to reinvent themselves around with new processes that can lead to more and more environmental friendly technologies and products. And as we move into electric vehicles and all of this, wind and solar, the steel industry is emerging with a new renaissance, really. And so it's a really exciting time to watch companies, I say Cleveland Cliffs and Nucor and others that are really doing a hell of a nice job, and to be celebrated. I mean, it took a long time. Because these communities really took it on the chin. I mean, we had, in Youngstown, we had factories with 20, 30,000 people in them. I mean, the pictures, and we could get some and post them on the site here for We the People. But it was like the whistle blew at 3 o'clock, and it was just thousands of people walking over a bridge in Youngstown, Ohio, or Camel, Ohio, or Struthers, Ohio, where my wife is from. And it was just amazing. I mean, right out of American history, like lunch bucket, hard hat, dirty, guys that worked for a living, and they would go across the bridge and they would go to the bar and have a shot and a beer, and then they'd go home and, cut the grass or tend to their garden. And it was just guys that, as I used to say, take a shower after work, not before work. And that was a key part of the American work ethic for a long time. So to see the steel industry emerge, Cleveland Cliffs, for example, all United Steelworkers, pretty good relationship between the company and the union, good pension, good wages, pretty good working conditions. So, it's coming around. It's taken a long time, but it really to be celebrated.
And that's great. We basically lost a generation of steelworkers, right? When they closed it down. And then, so these new steel plants, Cleveland Cliffs, are these younger workers? How do you kind of how do you get into this industry? And is it being like a lifeline for kind of younger Americans who are just starting out?
Yeah. They're moving younger workers in. The technology is so terrific that, they don't need 30,000 employees anymore. But I do think if we can go all in on really trying to dominate the world steel market and protecting our companies with tariffs, because China and other countries dump a lot of steel into our country. We have a great company back home, Wheatland Tube, and they do steel tubing. And they've got a great CEO, again, Steelworker Union, and they just continue to try to compete against China that dumps their steel. And dumping means they sell the product in the United States for less than it costs to make in China. So because they just want to try to get market share. So they manipulate their currency, or they do whatever they have to do. But that product, and I don't know if it's the same now, I've been out now for a few months, but at many points throughout my career, the Chinese product landing on the shore of the United States of America was cheaper than the raw material costs of the American company just trying to get things up and running. So before they even turn the lights on at Wheatland Tube or Cleveland Cliffs or wherever, they're already getting beat price-wise from the Chinese steel coming in, and they would move it around the country. You try to go to China and say, okay, you can't bring this in, and China would ship it to Vietnam and you put tariffs on the China steel. They'd ship it to Vietnam, put the Vietnam tag on it, same steel, send it to the United States, avoid the tariffs. It's a big cat and mouse game that we play every single day here in the United States. So, keeping up with that competition is very, very tough, which is why you've got to have tariffs on those products coming in to protect the American steel workers. So you don't need as many workers, but they are still good paying jobs. And if we can expand that industry, it's a real lifeline for really good paying jobs for people.
And this all came about, the kind of reemergence of American steel, U.S. steel, because of what?
Well, I think it was you got your ass kicked for a long time. You finally, you try to finally figure out how to make it work. I think what's really helped with President Obama, we started to put tariffs on. I know I testified, Sherrod Brown, others, to the International Trade Commission to lobby the Department of Commerce to put tariffs on these products. I think that periodically helped. The natural gas revolution in the United States helped because that increased demand, and so natural gas trying to displace coal, to try to move to a cleaner source of energy. So that was the shale revolution was a big thing, and then all the Buy American provisions that President Biden and the Democrats put in to the infrastructure bill and the Inflation Reduction Act. This was all heavy, really strict Buy American provisions. And so all the steel going into all the big infrastructure projects around the country, that's going to be American steel, which means American steelworker jobs in areas that have lost. So I think those policy initiatives over the past few years have helped, and now these companies are doing pretty well.
Yeah, things seem to really be looking up. So let's switch gears a little bit. I want to ask you two things. One, I see that you're wearing a Cleveland Browns hat, and so do you have any quick hits about the return of regular season football, return of the Browns being
very excited about the Browns game, man. They got their defense. Their defense looked good. Their special teams look good. They made their field goals. Yeah, a lot of good energy with the Browns. So we're super excited. We do this every year if we win a game. But big game with the Steelers Monday night. So hopefully we can pull that off. Very, very sad. I was watching the Jets game the other night, a Monday night football game, and very sad to see Aaron Rodgers go down. I'm a very, very big Aaron Rodgers fan. And I was excited about the Jets, but it ended up being a heck of a game. Punt return to win the game in overtime. Can't beat it. But sad about Aaron Rodgers. He's my kind of guy. Aaron Rodgers is my kind of guy.
I'm also sad about Aaron Rodgers because he was my starting fantasy quarterback, and I had a lot of hopes. So it's all so as a Seahawks fan in a terrible Seahawks game, and then Aaron Rodgers. This was actually a terrible football weekend for me, and it's probably something that I'll be texting you about late at night, as I just am very sad, just constantly disappointed in myself, mostly. Yeah.
Well, that was a good pick, though. You probably were excited that you got Aaron Rodgers, right?
Oh, yeah. I picked him up in the sixth round, too.
Yeah. Oh, man.
I know.
Pick.
It was a steal.
Yeah.
It was a steal.
How did he last to the sixth round? Somebody knew something we didn't know.
My I don't play in a sophisticated fantasy football league. That's where part of my success comes from. So I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
But I say that, and I'm the one with the worst team currently. So
this may be one of the only fantasy leagues where Aaron Rodgers made it to the sixth round before anyone picked him. I mean, honestly, we should run the traps on that. Can we get our people on that? I think we need to get our research team on, a crack research team. Hugo, you said you wanted to research stuff. Here we go.
As he types on it, sure. We'll never see that. Let's talk about music. On our first episode, we were going to get to it, but then we talked for too long, which is surprising considering we have a former politician and a recovering political consultant who just pontificates for a living. I thought it was hysterical. The Oliver Anthony's Richmond north of Richmond coming out, the right glomming on, to the point where it was mentioned, in the debate, and the left obviously shunning, being like, oh my God, what is this guy talking about? And, and I just wanted to know, what was your reaction? Because, you saw it, and, we talked about it, we had text, threads about it. What is it about, politics? We always want to be in culture. We always want to be like, oh, look at this cultural moment that's happening. Let's put a stamp on it, or let's grab it. And it seemed to backfire for everybody. And I think that there's a lot. I think there's a lot there. As
it should have. It should have backfired on everybody. It was insanity. I don't know. It's almost like Pavlov's dog. You ring the bell, the dog salivates, right? And in politics, it's like you ring the bell and the right does this and the left does that. Or whoever goes first, you know what I mean? Like whoever goes first starts salivating and then the other side starts salivating. And it's crazy. And it just takes, every little thing now is put through the prism of red versus blue. And that's the exhausting part. It's maddening. Like you can't have any, just normal conversations about a song. It's got to be, it's got to be viewed through a political lens. And I think especially when it comes to art, where art is always meant to question and challenge, but it's also meant to heal and provide insight. And the song was providing some insight, I think, into this artist's view of the world. And you need some healing. I love, I think artists are in a position and should be in a position to heal and, to love and to teach tolerance and those kind of things. And I love and I remember during the inauguration, I watched Garth Brooks come up, and he just he's hugging everybody. He hugged all the presidents, Democrat, Republican. You got a hug from Garth Brooks. And I can't remember who it was. If it was Bush, George W. Bush, or somebody, and he forgot because he was just, he wasn't up there just to hug people. He was up there to do his thing, and then he was working his way around. But he saw Obama, and he saw, whatever, and then he went back and hugged George W. Bush because he didn't want him to feel like, he didn't get a hug from Garth Brooks. And I just thought that's really cool. Like, this guy's an artist, and he just, is obviously a really cool guy. And then when the Bud Light thing happened, I remember he has a bar, and the right was like, you got to get rid of your Bud Light because of the commercial. And Garth Brooks kept serving Bud Light at his bar, and somebody asked him about it, and he said, I'm not judging anybody. Like, if you don't want to drink Bud Light, don't drink it. Well, if you want to drink it, we'll have it here. If you don't want to drink it, don't drink it. It's that simple. And I'm like, boom. That's how you handle that. Like, you don't have to, get everybody all hopped up on some issue. Like, it's the defining issue in the country if you drink Bud Light or don't drink Bud Light. It's like this. Who's the fucking guy? Oh, Kid Rock. I like Kid Rock's music. But this guy, he cranks up the Trump bass, right? He just gets them going. Then fucking guys in a suite at a concert or a game drinking a Bud Light. Mm-hmm. You can't make this shit up. Come on. So what we want to do here at We the People podcast is we want to kind of shine a little light on that. We don't want to make a big deal about it, but we want to just say, you see, come on. No one.
Yeah, that was a little crazy. That was a little crazy. Yeah. Let's move on. Let's talk about other stuff.
I didn't mean to swear. I got a little fired up there, Parker. But
we will. We'll do our best to beep it out. All right. I have one last question, and I didn't prep you for this. This is totally out of left field, but I know. So be careful. But right after Labor Day, I went to my hardware store to, pick up something to fix and do a poor job at it, and, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, my God.
And I saw right after Labor Day, they put up all of the Halloween stuff. And I'm something you should know about me. I think holidays should be appropriately timed. I think it was early September, and Labor Day came early this year. It was early September, and we were all ready. These are huge Halloween stuff. So, which I think is ridiculous. But for you're just moving into a new house. When are you going to put up your Halloween decorations? Or do you put up Halloween decorations? This might be a defining question for you.
Yeah, well, of course, we are gonna put up our Halloween. We're just getting moved in. What's the date? We're second week of September.
It's the 13th right now. Yeah,
13th. So yeah, we're into the second week of September. That's it. My view and my wife's view are completely different. So she's much more of a planner than me. I would be like, oh shit, Halloween's in 10 days. Maybe we should cut a pumpkin or something. Mm-hmm. My wife will have October 1st. We're doing, she'll have this all planned out. And so we will have Halloween up, but we don't have anything up now. I did see a couple people in the neighborhood. We were riding around, and there was a person who had the big white, Halloween, the things that fly around. They had that up in their yard.
Yeah.
I thought that was a little early. Brady said
a little early.
He's like, that's a little early, yeah. But I also saw someone had Christmas lights up.
Whoa.
Yeah,
What?
it was across from the school. Yeah, they had their Christmas lights up.
Like
I
full
don't
meal?
know.
Like they turn it on at night and everything? I
The
mean, that
whole
it's
thing.
they're just
Yeah, it was on. Yeah, the whole house was decorated in Christmas lights. Now, there wasn't a Santa Claus or anything like that, which is absolutely ridiculous. But, where we have conflict in my house is I would like to leave the Christmas decorations up, like, towards the end of January.
oh.
My wife, if I leave the house like on January 1st to like go watch games, go watch the bowl games and stuff, there's a decent chance they're all down when I get home.
Wow.
So
I like that.
That's
I like that.
no, that's one of the big issues we have every year. Coming off a nice holiday, I'm like, because I don't want to let go. I have trouble letting go. Yeah, it's an emotional thing for me, but it's something I need to work on. Yeah.
But what I heard is that Halloween decorations October 1st, that's appropriate. Everybody else, you're jumping the gun a little bit. Just a smidge.
30 days. I mean, you got 30 days, right? You got 30 days, and then about midway through, maybe you start cutting some pumpkins, doing the pumpkin seeds and, having that whole thing going on where you, have friends over and you cook the pumpkin seeds and, maybe have an adult beverage and, some fellowship. Nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely. Well, I think that we have touched on all of the pressing news of the day. So thank you for your time, Tim. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for tuning in to The Exhausted Majority, produced by We the People, with your host, Tim Ryan, and myself, Parker Butterworth. If you're interested in our journey about how we heal America, then follow along, subscribe. And you can always sign up for our emails at www.wethepeople250.us.